turn our attention to Mr. Keith Costas, who is with MLB TV. He's our friend. He joins us every Thursday. Good morning, Mr. Keith Costas.
Morning, McGraw. Morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
Let's talk our Cardinals. I don't know if word got back to Secaucus, New Jersey, but Adam Wainwright was thrown off the mound yesterday.
We heard something about that. Yeah, it made it up here.
Do we think he's got a legit chance to come back and play in the playoffs?
You know, I guess he does. He wouldn't be out there if they didn't think it was a real possibility. He's been saying it for months, and, you know, the closer it got and the more real it started to become, I think the more credence people started to give it. But I saw a couple things floating around yesterday from some interviews given by doctors at the time of the injury that actually said, hey, you know, 9 to 12 months might be a little too cautious for a projection here. He could be back in 4 to 6 months, especially as a pitcher. You know, of course, oddly enough, he did it when he was hitting, so That's something you have to keep an eye out for in National League parks. But if he's going to be relieving, he won't be in the box too often. So if you're just talking about pitching and he thinks he's healthy, you know, I think that you have to probably, you know, side with him being more likely to pitch in the postseason at this point. But I wouldn't say it's a lock. I wouldn't.
If he is going to be available, I'd keep Rosenthal where he is and maybe use him as a setup man, first man out of the bullpen. But I'd leave Rosenthal right where he is.
Absolutely. I wouldn't touch Rosenthal either. I think that's probably what they're targeting as well, is maybe, you know, a setup role, whether that's the 8th inning, 6th, 7th inning, as a guy who might be able to go multiple innings. But, yeah, somewhere at the back end of that bullpen in high-leverage situations. Now, with that being said, I find it kind of interesting that people are, you know, obviously it's a huge story. I understand that. It's a guy who's a perennial Cy Young contender. He's the unquestioned leader of the team, a superstar with big-time postseason experience. But, you know, when else do you hear about, oh, this team's going to go far in the postseason because they've got a great 7th or 8th inning? I mean, you know, it's certainly a good thing to have. A bullpen's certainly a huge part of, you know, a team, especially in the postseason. But this idea that he's going to be some kind of game changer is, you know, I think maybe a little bit overblown.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the brilliant insight of Keith Costas from MLB TV. You were there yesterday working. You grew up in St. Louis. You had a unique perspective on the news that one of the greatest baseball players ever to live, Yogi Berra, passed away.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that kind of changed our whole plan that we had going forward when that news broke overnight. We woke up and all saw it, and that's what we spent the majority of the show on yesterday. Heard from a lot of different people, and you know, I don't have anything to add really other than what everyone's already heard, but it's just, you know, everyone has the same things to say. You never hear a bad word about Yogi. He's such a great guy off the field, you know, a true American icon, not just a baseball icon. But, you know, he's a little bit almost underappreciated for what he did as a player because he had such a big personality off the field. This guy was a truly, truly great player on some iconic teams, some of the best teams we've ever seen in the history of the game. And he'll be missed. Everyone had wonderful things to say about him, and many people said, you know, even behind the scenes, you never could find anybody to say a bad word about Yogi ever.
Did they bring up the fact that Yoo-Hoo is totally underrated as a chocolate drink?
That was not a big talking point. I saw that maybe move down somewhere in the Z block for the TV folks out there that know that lingo. That was maybe way down the rundown in case we had some technical difficulties.
Everything the man touched turned to gold in terms of business, and he was the spokesman for this weird chocolate milk company called Yoo-Hoo, and I guess it was back east because I've mentioned it here in St. Louis, and people look at me like I'm crazy. Have you ever heard of Yoo-Hoo?
I have heard of Yoo-Hoo. I was unaware of this connection with Yogi. Here I thought we'd close the book with a beautiful tribute to him pretty much wall-to-wall yesterday, but I guess we'll have to reopen that book today. Maybe have you on to talk Yoo-Hoo.
Ask your father about Yoo-Hoo. I bet you as a kid he was eating his ham sandwiches and having a Yoo-Hoo and listening to the Yankee games.
Sounds like a hell of a time.
Keith Costas, what's on the show today?
We'll be talking a lot of AL West. You know, some St. Louis listeners will be interested in some of our former Cardinal brethren with Pujols having a big game a couple nights ago. David Freese had a huge double for them last night, and they were playing Jeff Lunau's Astros. They're gaining ground on them. The Astros have been kind of in the driver's seat out west all season long. They've slipped to a wild card spot, and the Angels are right on their heels. So we'll have some talk about that. And then Nolan Arenado from the Rockies, maybe one of the best players that the casual fan doesn't know about to win his 3rd straight Gold Gloves, going to have 40 homers this year. He'll be on too later in the program.
Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Costas, thanks for checking in, Keith. Try that Yoo-Hoo, and we'll talk to you next Thursday.
I'm on it. Thanks for the tip.
You got it. 7-Eleven here, Big 550 KTR.